Since I was a child, I've seen the same person appear before a terrible incident befalls our family. Perhaps saying person is misleading. Trust me, this thing isn't a person. It's been appearing for decades. I saw it before my grandmother died, before my grandfather died, before my uncle died. I wasn't even that close to my uncle. I hadn't seen him in years, but I still saw it. It didn't just appear before deaths. No. It would show itself before hardships, sadnesses, and times of stress. When my cousin's wife was going through a rough patch, it revealed itself. So that leads me to believe that it's not necessarily bound to us by blood. It's not a scary, shadowy figure. It's just a normal-looking human. Someone who wouldn't look out of place in a crowd, perhaps. It doesn't do anything. It's just there. It always looks the same. Therefore, I always recognize it. It was a shape, yet a person. It just was always the same version of itself. Apparently, I seem to be the only one who can see it. It appeared to be genderless. It looked like a man, but I guess it could be taken for a woman. It has a horrible, blank expression, and it appears just out of my eye line. Then, as soon as I zero in on it, it's gone. I have never seen it inside a building. It's always outside. Most of the time, it's in my field of vision before I know about it. Whenever I saw it, I would always get stressed out, and I would start to worry about my family. Years rolled by, and thankfully, my family hadn't suffered any misfortunes. So I forgot about it, since I hadn't seen it for so long. But it appeared again this spring. I was playing a little hooky from work that day, and I walked to a nearby convenience store. I stood outside, smoking a cigarette. I glanced across the street, and there it was once again, stood stock still with its expressionless face. The memories came back. I thought that soon someone I cared about would suffer some hardship, or worse still, die. It's a terrifying thing. Every time I see it, I get incredibly anxious that the phone will ring, or the police will knock at my door with their hats in their hands to tell me that something terrible has happened. 3 nervous days passed, and then I saw it again. I was going to a different convenience store. It must have been after midnight. I was about to cross the road when it appeared in my field of vision. It was terrifying to see it so late at night, and in such quick succession. Usually, I wouldn't see it for years, but it was back, only 3 days later. I couldn't process this information. I just stood still, in the middle of the road. I stopped paying attention to the road. I didn't see the car approaching. The frightening thing was the distance between me and the car. I managed to jump out of its way, and there must have only been a couple of centimeters in it. I could picture myself disappearing under its hood and the wheels going over me. It was my fault. I wasn't paying attention, and I nearly caused an accident. I was really shaken up. I wanted to go and apologize to the driver, so I ran over to the driver's side window. As soon as I caught a glimpse of the driver, I was immediately frightened. The driver was staring at me with a completely blank expression. He looked like that thing. I met eyes with him, or it, and it just tutted at me. And its expression went from a blank one to one of pure hatred. I backed away from the car, and the driver seemed as if he had just awoken from some kind of trance. He looked around, panicked, and embarrassingly sped away. Until that day, I always thought that thing, it, was a kind of spectre of death, some kind of harbinger of doom. I never thought that it was malevolent and was out to hurt my family and I. But it seems like it was the driving force for our misery. It was always there, and it nearly claimed my life too. I haven't seen it since last spring. No one in my family has died, and of course, I'm not dead either. I'm living each day under its shadow, worried that one day it will be back, and I won't catch a lucky break. This happened when I started living alone. Not long after I had just moved in. I think it must have been the first week. I found out that my new apartment was in the path of an oncoming typhoon. That night I had gotten off to sleep all right, but I awoke in the middle of the night to hear the sound of wind and rain lashing my windows. It was so loud, I just couldn't get back to sleep. I was lying there in bed, thinking about nothing in particular, when I heard. It was coming from the front door. It was the doorbell. Who the hell would be ringing the doorbell of my new apartment? I asked myself. I crept downstairs and I took a look through the peephole. There was a person out there. I was freaked out, but I asked, "Who is it?" I could hear the fear in my voice. "Hey, it's me, man." It was my friend. Literally, my best friend. He was one of the only ones who knew my address. "Why didn't you just tell me you were coming over, man? It's like the middle of the night," I said through the door. I tried to get a look at him, but it was dark and he had his hat pulled down. That didn't matter because we were friends. I mean, it was a little weird, but I've known him for years. "Hey, you really did well to get here in this storm, dude," I called out as I started to unlock the door. That was the moment that something dawned on me. Best friend or not, why was he out here, barely talking, and how did he make it here? I could still hear the ferocity of the typhoon against the door. Another odd thing, he didn't have a driver's license. Even if he somehow caught a bus, he would have had to walk for a long while. There were no bus stops nearby. I didn't know the area all that well, but it seemed a bit too late for buses. Besides, who turns up in the middle of the night, during a storm, unannounced? These were all red flags, and I didn't like them. What the hell was this? I brought my eye closer to the peephole. "Hey, bud, how did you get here?" I asked cautiously. We fell into an awkward silence while the typhoon raged on. I brought my eye closer to the peephole. I wanted to catch a closer look at him. His skin was disturbingly pale. It reminded me of a waxwork skin. His eyes flitted back and forth, as if they were remote controlled. That wasn't my friend. I wasn't even sure that was a human. It was pretending, whatever it was. I didn't let on that I was scared, but I was petrified. I watched that thing out there, which looked like my best friend, stand there and smile inanely, occasionally twitching at the corners of its lips. I had to get away from the door once I saw that. I went into another room and I tried my best to compose myself. I tried to think about what to do next. All the while, that friend thing repeated the same line it delivered earlier, as if it was all it knew, like it was an actor practicing its lines. "Hey, it's me, man." I called my friend, the one it was impersonating. He said that it wasn't him. I knew it wasn't him, but I just had to be 100% sure. That thing was very convincing. I went upstairs and went back to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I didn't know how long that thing stayed outside my door, but I heard it occasionally repeating its line. "Hey, it's me, man." After a sleepless night, the sun rose and the typhoon subsided. It took a long while for me to get up the confidence to approach the peephole, but when I did, I found that it was gone. This happened when I was a kid. I lived in the countryside, a small town surrounded by lots of nature. Lightning struck a huge tree nearby one night. When I say the tree is huge, I mean it. It would have taken 2 adults to wrap both their arms around its trunk. At the time, my family and I were living on the 6th floor in an apartment block. That night, I had heard thunder in the distance, and then, just as I looked out the window, I saw lightning strike the tree. I would have never thought that lightning could strike so close to our home. It was so exciting. My little sister was playing in a nearby room and came running in, looking shocked. She said that she had wanted to go out and look at the damage the lightning did to the tree, but our parents had told her no, so now she was in my room, cussing them out. In all honesty, I really wanted to go check it out too. I had this idea in my head that I would take a piece of scorched wood or bark back and display it in my room. So we hatched a little plan to sneak out when Mum and Dad were sleeping. My sister woke me up at around 1 a.m. by repeatedly punching me. She was such a sweetie. The rain was hammering down against my bedroom window. It was really loud. The tree was only about 5 minutes away from our apartment, so we threw on some raincoats and grabbed some umbrellas and headed out as quietly as we possibly could. As we arrived at the tree, my sister started shouting out about how awesome it looked. I was agreeing with her. I couldn't believe that a bolt of lightning could have been this powerful. The tree had a huge split running through it. "Whoa, a huge piece has already come off. Look," I said to her. "No, that's not a part of the tree." We got a little closer and took a better look at it. Those are cats. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were about 10 cats all gathered round the base of the tree. They looked like its roots. We got closer still and saw that there was a large black dog there. A dog bigger than any I've ever seen. It only barely resembled a dog. It glared at us. I couldn't move at all. Some sort of mist emanated from around that creature, and it vanished. Then, as if some sort of spell was broken, my sister and I were able to run back home. My sister then said something strange on the way home. "It was such a beautiful silver color, right?" I didn't see anything silver. I really have no explanation for any of that, or whatever that horrible black dog-like creature was. Any theories are welcome. I was told this story by an acquaintance. This happened while he was working in Tokyo. He was working later than usual since it was the end of the financial year, and a lot of different departments were staying on late, including his. And because his company had managed to get everything in order, his boss decided to take the team out for some drinks. After getting suitably drunk, he was only just able to make it in time for the last train home of the night. The only issue was that it stopped a few stations away from his home. The following happened as he was on his tipsy way home. It was a quiet night, and there was a pleasant breeze in the air. Although it would usually only take about 10 minutes to get home from the station, he said that he needed to find a bathroom, so he walked through the local park. He said that as soon as he entered the park, he heard something. A muffled, sobbing sound, the sound of a woman crying. In the park, opposite to the toilets, is a row of benches. My friend knew that he would likely have to pass by whoever was sobbing to use the facilities. As he drew closer, his eyes could confirm what his ears had told him. She had her head in her hands, and she was gently rocking back and forth. He said that he was worried about the woman, but first things first, he needed to use the bathroom, and fast. While he was washing his hands, he said that he could hear her sobbing on one of those benches. Now, my friend was not the type to be overly sympathetic, but he said that he stopped and was a little concerned for her. He called out from afar and asked her what the matter was. Then, when she offered no response, he approached her. "Are you okay?" he called out in a soft voice as he edged closer. At the very moment he did this, the woman shot to her feet and produced a sharp blade she had hidden. She held it overhand and started screaming and walking towards him. He said that she screamed the word chest and began to run at him. She was smiling at him. As she charged towards him, the knife slashed within a hair's breadth of him. Without thought, he struck a defensive blow to the crazed woman. His years of karate lessons had served him well. He was able to get her on the floor and get a safe distance away. She scrambled to her feet, then ran for it without looking back. My friend was able to get home safely. A couple of days later, he got a newspaper on the way to work and read a story about a woman who tried to attack other pedestrians. The incident was described as a thrill killing. He said he knew it was her before he saw her mugshot, but when he saw her smiling like she did before she lunged at him with that kitchen knife, he got goosebumps. This summer, I saw my brother's doppelganger. My brother's a tall and lanky kind of guy, a bit on the bony side too. His frame is pretty easily recognizable in a crowd. Another odd thing about him is he walks very purposely, as if he's always late for something. I saw my brother's doppelganger 3 times this summer. We live in the countryside, and there is just the one train station nearby. Since our town is really small, you come to recognize the people who use the station and the faces you see in town, the grocery store, the bank, etc. The town's so small that if someone's friend or family members were visiting, you could spot them out almost instantly. On the train, I would say that there are about 30 average daily commuters who use that station. So if someone looked exactly like your brother, then you'd notice them instantly. So, one day, last summer, I went to see some friends and I had a great time. I took the train back just like always. I got off one of the back carriages and saw someone tall walking quickly up ahead. "Ah, it's my bro," I thought. I wanted to go try and catch up with him and speak to him, but he was moving so fast. As usual, I couldn't be bothered to run after him since I was pretty tired. When I got home, I told him that I saw him at the train station. "What are you talking about? I haven't even left the house today," he replied. "We were literally on the same train, bro." "It wasn't me," he said. I didn't know who else it could have been. I swear that was him. I swear I saw him coming off of that train. Anyways, that was my first encounter with my brother's doppelganger. By the time the morning rolled around, I'd forgotten about the whole thing. A week or so went past, and I was coming back into town around lunchtime, and I saw my brother getting off the train again. This time, he wasn't too far away, so I ran over to him to chat. "Ha, same train, huh?" I said as I slapped him on the back and looked up at him. As soon as I slapped him on the back, I felt an intense feeling of unease, like a needle skipping on a record. Something so instantly noticeable as out of place occurred. My discomfort turned to absolute conviction when our eyes met. Even though it looked 100% like him, I knew that it wasn't my brother. I apologized and scarpered off in the direction of home. This is where things get weird and harder to explain. I can't clearly remember his face. This sounds so mad because he looks just like my brother, right? It's like there's a corrupted file in my memory. When I got home, my brother was there, and I looked at him and spoke with him. I didn't get the same uneasy feeling. I saw him again, the doppelganger, not my brother, at the station very soon after. I didn't approach this time, but I knew it was him. I was scared to approach him. It's crazy. It looked so much like my brother, yet I was scared of it. I actually stopped and let the doppelganger walk off. I didn't want it in my eye line. I felt really weird about the whole thing, so I spoke to my dad about it. And to my surprise, he said that he had seen the doppelganger too. He said he had also saw it leaving the train station. During that summer, I felt as if it was some kind of never-ending loop. My dad saw it one more time after this, and he said that instead of walking into town, it was walking towards the woods. After that, we never saw it again. It really makes you think, is there someone out there that looks just like you but is so inherently not you that it's noticeable to others? I find this very disturbing. I think the reason why this troubles me so much was the fact that it was in our neighborhood for such a brief time and seemingly didn't create any issues here. But it must have been here for a reason, right? It torments me that I didn't do more when I saw my brother's doppelganger. Nothing happened yet, but I feel like there's a storm brewing. This happened this summer. I was wondering whether or not to take a trip back to my hometown. I am originally from quite a rural area in the countryside. I got a call from Yoshi. It went something like this. Hey, long time no speak. You haven't been back in town for years, have you? How's things going? Yeah, well, you might want to come back for the school reunion this summer. Everyone's going to be there, even the teachers. The organizer of the reunion at the school got in touch with me. Her name's Mia, and she said she couldn't reach you, so when you get a chance, just give her a call back. I said that I didn't have any missed calls, so I asked for this Mia's number. I called her and let her know that I wanted to go to the reunion. I felt a bit awkward as I didn't really remember the person who had just called me. So I went back home and I joined the reunion. It was really nostalgic to see everyone again. It had been like 25 years since I'd seen some of them. A lot of people said that I looked different. No surprises there. I mean, it had been 25 years. I was kidding with an old favorite teacher of mine who said that I was still as rude as ever. Everyone was so nice though. I didn't see Yoshi though. I wanted to thank Yoshi for getting in touch, so I went over to Mia, the organizer, and asked where Yoshi was. She asked me for his full name, and I couldn't remember it. She searched through a list of the attendees and said that there was no Yoshi at this party. She said that she never called him or asked him to call me. She asked around, but nobody seemed to know who this Yoshi was. She said that no one should have called. All those who were invited were sent something in the mail, and there was never a plan to call anyone. Well, that's what she said. I wasn't sure if it was the truth at the time, and I didn't really feel like arguing with her, so I just dropped it. The strange call and Yoshi were brought up again in conversation later. No one I spoke to seemed to remember him, and no one else got a call from him, or from anyone regarding the reunion. The mystery of Yoshi was annoying me, so I called my mum and asked. She seemed to remember someone by that name. She said that he had come to a birthday party of mine and tried to give me an old dirty book as a present. I didn't remember that. She said that she was sure this Yoshi character must have fished the book out of the garbage. From then on, she thought that he was a pretty odd kid, and that's why she could remember him. She said it wasn't a book fit for children either. She said that I really liked him, and I wanted to read that book. She wanted to throw it in the trash, but I wouldn't let her. I really have no recollection of any of this. It was creeping me out. I pulled out my phone and checked it. I had 10 missed calls from this Yoshi. It was getting really weird now. Someone suggested that I call the number back. I did, and we all heard a ringtone coming from outside the event room, and then my phone died. We went to check, but we couldn't find anyone. He must have been here though. I was a bit freaked out, and so were some of the others. so a group of us decided to take off early. It didn't end here though. I got an email from Yoshi, and it read, "Sorry I didn't catch you at the reunion, but don't worry. I've decided to come visit you personally. Can I crash at yours?" I haven't replied and I don't think I will. This is seriously weird. Who are you? It makes me incredibly anxious. I always double check the doors are locked. Each night. This happened a few years ago. I can't remember which year. I was on the way home from school. I always used to ride the rails back then. I was scanning around as one usually might, and I noticed that someone had left a book on the luggage rail. Well, I was on a pretty long and boring train ride, so I decided to pick up the book, and I stood there on that crowded train and flicked through it. I cannot remember the name of the book, but the theme was Forbidden Spells. Interesting, I thought. I found all sorts of spells in that book, such as a spell to find your true love, and spells which can help you pass exams. The more I read, the more interested I became. And when I arrived at the station I usually change at, I decided to take the book with me. I took a seat on a park bench, on the walk between stations, and decided to continue flipping through the book. I landed on a page, and I noticed a rain-making spell. Since it had been hot, and it hadn't rained for a while, I decided to try it out to see if it had any truth in it. I wasn't really expecting much, so I sat there in a mostly empty park with no one around, and I started chanting as the spell dictated. The sky was blue and full of white clouds, but within a blink of an eye, black clouds started amassing. The whole park became dark. Thunder rang out as if to punctuate the end of the spell, and then heavy rain fell all around me. I ran into a covered area of the park. I couldn't believe what was going on. I just sat there in awe, watching the rain, wondering if it was I that created it. Then, after about 30 minutes, the rain suddenly stopped, and the blue sky was back. Could I honestly convince myself that I had just performed a rain spell? That I brought the rain? Or was this some kind of mad coincidence? For whatever reason, I decided that the spells were real. I got it in my head that when I got home, I would chant another spell, one which would make me rich or something. I read through the book on the last leg of my journey home. I don't think my eyes ever left the pages. They were bulging with imagined riches. I know that I slipped the book into my school bag. I know I did. But when I got home, I searched and searched everywhere, and I couldn't find it. For some reason, I thought that I left it on the train, maybe on the luggage rack. This was so strange. It seemed like an artificial memory to me. It was as if I left it there against my will, like it was removed from my possession. A few days passed. The weather was completely fine. But then it turned, and it rained straight for about 30 minutes. It suddenly stopped, and the black clouds cleared, and the blue sky was back. I wonder if someone else found that book. I am always looking on the luggage rack for that book. I really want that book back. It's mine. It's mine. I'd do anything to have it back.